Hello, I'm John. This is a Bladegheist Revenant and you're watching Wargames, Models and Other Hobbies. Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to be painting the 500th store limited edition Bladegheist Revenant. I do like the Nighthaunt models from Games Workshop, from Warhammer. I don't have that many as a collection, but I may get a few more. There's particular ones I really like the look of. But in this video what I'm going to be doing is going through techniques I use to paint these kinds of models. I'm going to limit my palette with this, so I've chosen 8 paints already, but I might choose an extra 2 or 3 as I go. But I'm going to document this whole process in this video. I also have a hairdryer handy to force the drying because I want to try and complete this in one sitting so you can see the exact process of how I paint these kinds of models. So to start with, I've built the model and I've primed it with some white scar spray. It's my preferred colour to use as a white base coat. I know there's lots of talk about which is the best one to use, but I do prefer the white one personally. So to start with, what I want to do is I'm going to use the Hexwraith Flame as a base colour for the whole model, and then pick out certain colours and details and move on from there. So that's what I'm going to start with. So I'm going to use quite a large brush for this to cover the model itself. So starting down on the bottom, I am going to do a dry brush over the top of this once it's done, and I don't mind running over the edges with this base colour. It's kind of the benefit of having one colour as the overall finish. So I haven't sat down and painted a full model in one sitting for quite a while, so it's going to be quite nice to do it in this video. But yeah, the Nighthaunt models, I do like quite a few of them, and it's something that I'm thinking about getting a few key models to paint up, just not for playing, just for painting and putting them on display. So also got to make sure that I'm in shot while I paint this. Apologies if any of that was out of shot then. But as you can see with this paint, I am just indiscriminately painting it on the model itself. So I want to make sure I get a good covering over the whole thing. So I'm starting with the Hexwraith Flame as a base, just because I want that kind of ghostly apparition to come across, and also I like it because it reminds me of Slimer from Ghostbusters. Right, that's the inside painted. So the benefit of this technical paint, I think it's classed as a contrast paint now in the new pot form, I'm not 100% sure, but if you know please correct me. The benefit I find with these paints is you can get this finish when using other paints, when using ink washes and thinning down other paints, but this does give you a really nice base to work on. And my plan with this, when it's dry, is to go over the top of it with a dry brush in places to knock the colour back slightly, but also give a bit more kind of depth to the colours. So the reason why I'm painting this model as well, at the moment I'm creating content with the suggestions of AI. Apologies if you can hear my dog while I'm talking. She's just woken up and thinks it's food time, but that's not for another few hours. What was it? Yeah, so I've been using AI to suggest content to make. Not for any other reason than I find it quite difficult sometimes to come up with ideas. So as a process, it's allowed me to create quite a lot more content than I would normally do, as it's given me a list of things to work on. So it allows me to create quite a few different things. But in this case, it actually came up with painting a banshee, but I don't actually have a banshee in my collection. I do like the Tomb Banshee from Games Workshop, really nice model, that one. But I do have this collector's model, so I thought actually I can use that to create this video. So the content that it's allowing me to make, I'm not sticking exactly to everything that it says, but it does allow me to create quite a bit of different content. Okay, let's have a look around, see if I've got every area. Okay. So at this point, now I've given it a full base coat on all the areas that I want to be the hex flame, I'm going to use my hairdryer to speed up the drying process. I'm just going to put it in my model holder so I can dry that off. So let's dry it. Okay, so there we have the Hex Wraith flame layer all kind of force dried with the hairdryer. You could, if you're doing night haunts, just paint them all with this and be done with it, but I'm going to add more details to this one as I go. It is a nice kind of finish it gives, but what I want to do now is I'm going to use the Gauze Blaster Green and I'm going to do a bit of dry brushing over the top of this model because I want to knock the colour back slightly. So just going to load up my dry brush and then knock most of it off on my palette. And my idea with this is just to take the edge of the green off to create a kind of a more spectral look to the model. So it's kind of being seen through, kind of being see-through in certain places and that kind of thing. So what I might do with this at the end, I might go over certain areas with the Hex Wraith flame again, but I'll see what it looks like when it comes out. I'm actually quite happy with the way that this is knocking back the colours slightly. Yeah, okay. Nice, okay. So that's the green done. Let me just clean my brush. Right, okay. So there we have the kind of the spectral robes painted. Now, one thing I do want to do, I want the kind of the green to look like the almost see-through spectral areas, but what I also want to add is more solid areas. So where we've got some lines for where leather work is for the capes and stuff, I'm actually going to paint that with Rhinox hide and then dry brush over the top of that slightly and then use some inks on it. Apart from that, all the rest of the details on this are going to be in some metallics. So let me have a look. Do I want to make that lighter? So what I'm going to do with the Gauze Blaster, rather than dry brushing some areas, I'm going to pick some colour out . So before I do that brown, I just want to pick some areas out . So that's something, whenever I paint a model, I'll start with an idea of where I want it to go, and I'll start with a set number of colours and so on. And I'll let it evolve while I paint. So the final outcome might be completely different to what I originally thought I was going to do. Or it might be exactly the same. That's what I wanted. Just this area here, I wanted to bring the colour back a little bit. Okay, right, let's get back to that brown. So I need to get brush. Let's Rhinox hide. I need to get a new one of these soon. It's starting to get to the bottom of the pot. So let's wet that paint slightly. I'll try and keep in frame while I do this. So to tie in the areas of the more kind of the solidity of the model in places to more the spectral area, what I'm going to do is use some ink washes. So I'm not too worried if I go over the edges slightly, because the washes are going to do that anyway. It's a nicely sculpted model, this. So I'm using my painting handle as well, which I've designed and made. So testing it out at the moment. One day I might, if there's a lot of interest, market it and get it made in a bigger scale than I did when I planned it for myself. Okay, so I'm just having a quick look around the model, see if there's any more. I don't think there is any more sections where there's any leather work or anything. That does go in slightly, so let's just bring that through like that. There we go. Okay. So next step, I want to do the main bits of ironwork and metal. So I've got two colours that I'm going to do the metal with. I've got the lead belcher and the Canopec, the Necron alloy one. So for most of the metal work I'm going to use the lead belcher, then I'm going to pick bits out with the alloy. So I'm hoping by the time I've painted this with the lead belcher, the Rhinox hide will have dried slightly, and then I can do a little bit of dry brushing on there. So what I want to do is pick out all of the chains. So I'm just going to be careful while I do this. Hopefully it's in focus for you. Actually, let me just knock the paint pots out the way, and then it should pick up a bit better. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to work on each chain individually, just so I can keep track of what I've painted and I don't miss any out. Sometimes I have that tendency while I'm painting, I'll concentrate on one bit a little bit too much and I'll miss another bit altogether. I'll finish the painting with those sections and then have to go back to it. One chain there. Let's start with this one down on the bottom. So I'm hoping when I come to the final kind of washes on this, it's going to do exactly what I kind of had planned. If it doesn't, I'll chalk it up to experience, but I'm hoping that the ink washes that I'm planning will give it a little bit of kind of solidity in areas. Okay, so I think there's only there's only 3 chains on this. So I might do this video as 2 versions. One where it's just me painting and it's real time, and another one where I speed up all the bits where I paint. So it's a lot quicker, but I'll see what it's like when I'm done. I could always make it into a short. Okay, so there are the chains. Let's now do the mask. Make sure I get the back of the mask in. Okay, let's get on to the weapons. So while I'm doing this, I'm having an idea about how I'm going to paint and finish the metal. So I'm thinking, once I've done a coat of the lead belcher over all the metallics, I'm then going to do a light dry brush with a brown, probably the Mornfang brown, just to add almost like wear and tear and rust. And then after that, I'll do a dry brush in the alloy, just to change the colour up a little bit. And it's quite nice sometimes doing a model with a limited palette, so you're not using loads and loads and loads of different colours. Sometimes it's nice just to limit what you're working on. And I'm doing this quite quickly, this paint job, quicker than I normally do. And to be honest, I don't mind if I miss a few bits while I'm painting, because I can always touch it up later on. So I think I'm about 25 minutes on the time, not 100% sure. Got to remember to keep it on the camera though. It's quite nice doing just block colours and not really thinking about blending and things like that. Let's do the hooks on the ends of the chains. Yeah, normally I'll build up real subtle colours and washes and that kind of thing, so it takes quite a while to do the painting process that I like to do. But it gives a style that I like and a finish that I really, really like. But doing just block colours is quite a nice way of doing it. And if you like these kind of painting videos where it's just real time, me just painting, occasionally talking, please drop a comment. If there's a subject you'd like me to talk about while painting, that's an idea. Give me something to talk about rather than just generally babble on. Right, one more hook to go. So one thing I do find, surprisingly, I don't watch many videos on painting techniques and things like that, because I tend to prefer to discover stuff myself. So I might spend ages just sitting down, playing around with a model, painting it, never to show anyone, just because I want to learn a new technique or something. So it's quite rare for me to watch videos, painting videos, if at all. So I don't know if someone's done this video already, or something very similar. Okay, so I think that's the lead belcher done. One thing I did notice, which I'm just going to get the gauze blaster out again, there's a few little places where I've gone over the edges slightly, so I'm just going to put some gauze blaster to fill in those points. So it's quite surprisingly, it's quite a grey-green, the gauze blaster. But it kind of works for the whole kind of spectral look. Okay. Let's get some of the armor. Okay. So, a quick recap at this stage. Started with base coat of the Hexwraith Flame, then did some dry brushing of the Gauze Blaster Green. Then I painted the leather strapping with Rhinox Hide, which I'm going to dry brush in a minute. Then all the metal work was done with lead belcher. So my next step, I'm going to use the Rakarth Flesh to do some dry brushing on the leather, just to pick out some details from that. So I don't need much on that, so I'm going to grab one of my old dry brushes from my drawer. So I do have, I'm working on my grandfather's old desk, his old work desk, so I've got drawers either side of me, which I found I tend to fill up with all my hobby stuff. So it's all at hand. So let's gently go over the top. I don't mind if this kind of goes on to the rest of the model, because of the plans I've got. I think it would just add a little bit more detail and colour in places, so it's not going to cause any issue if I go over. So this technique that I'm doing, if I ever get any more Nighthawks, I'll probably do exactly the same technique, which allows me to create a army of these really quite quickly. Okay, I'm happy with that. Just going to quickly go and open the back door for the dog. Okay. So the next step, there's some little studs on the leather work, and I pick those out with lead belcher. It's like painting eyes at this point. I find that the little spots of paint either go perfectly each time, or I screw it up. Like when I paint eyes. I screwed that one up. It's alright though, the ink will cover it up. So what I'll be doing before, yeah, I've got to do the brown on the weapons and metalworks, the rust. So I'll do that now. So I'm looking to use some Mournfang brown, and again that's going to be dry brushing it on. I really need to get some new dry brushes. That one will do. So I'm actually going for quite a big dry brush for what I want to do, but I don't need a lot of paint on here at all. So I'm just padding it off on my palette. I tend to like a dry palette. I know lots of people like wet palettes, but I prefer a dry one. And all I want to do is just gently go over that metallic with the dry brush. So just knocking back that metallic finish. The mask. And the chains. Okay. So, now I've done that, before I pick out anything with the canopect, the alloy paint, I apologise. If someone can direct me to a video where I can pronounce that properly, I'd appreciate it. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go for Nuln Oil and paint it over all the areas that I want to darken off, which is basically everywhere that isn't green. But I'm not going to do it with a big brush. I'm probably going to just do it with a medium layer brush. And what you'll notice is I haven't actually waited too long for it to dry. I want the colours to merge slightly as I do this. So I'm going to start with the chains. And I'm just going to pick out detail over the chain as I paint this. Okay, I'm liking how that's turning out actually. I might not use the word I cannot pronounce, alloy paint. The brown, the Mournfang brown and the Nuln Oil over the top is giving the effect that I'm looking for. So another thing, I'm not going to paint the base in this video. I'm going to do that in another video. I've already got a video on basing techniques, but I'm going to save this base for another video and talk about pre-sculpted bases. I think I just headbutt the camera. Apologies if it shook a lot. Okay. Let's do the sword. And it's the joy of Nuln Oil is the way it picks up all of that little detail. All the sculpted little detail that you've covered up with paint. Every so often when I'm painting with shades and washes and things, I always close the lid and shake them a little bit mid paint in case anything's settled. I'm really liking how this is kind of going now. I'll do the inside of the mask. But it just went on the arm, so I'll just wash my brush just to knock that back slightly. So this is where I want to go over the edges with the Nuln Oil. So where I've got the leather work, I want to splatter a little bit that Nuln Oil coming off it. So it starts to create a darker edge to some of the areas. So it almost looks like there's some solidity to the hood, the cloth, that kind of thing. Okay. Right, what I'm going to do is quickly knock this with the hairdryer so I can do another coat over the top. Okay, so let's just move in a little bit here. It is so far. So let's get a little bit more of the Nuln Oil. So what I tend to do with shades and things is build it up layer by layer. It's something that I like to do when I'm painting, because you can get a really nice finish from just those thin layers of colour building up bit by bit. Also, holding it in a very specific direction when painting allows it to kind of flow in a certain way. Right. Yeah, apologies that I'm not talking loads. That's what I need to do. If I do these painting videos, I need a subject. Like I said earlier, I need a subject to talk about while I'm painting. Okay. Make sure I put the lid on the Nuln Oil so I don't get spillage. Right, going to knock this back again with the hairdryer. Okay. So, what I think I will do, I am going to use the Canopec alloy. That sounds right. Maybe I've finally got it. Canopec or alloy. I'm going to do a little bit of dry brushing with that on some of the metallics. But so far, this is going the direction that I wanted it to. So if you have a look at the way that Nuln Oil starts to create a solidity on the model there. Let's find another dry brush. I need to get some new dry brushes. Actually, that's a good. If anyone can recommend a good range of brushes, I tend to get Citadel ones, and then occasionally I get Broken Toad. But to be honest, I'm really bad at keeping my brushes in good condition. I do abuse them quite a lot when painting. I mean, I could get some brush soap, but I do abuse them somewhat. Okay, so let's... Good. You know what? And that's less is more on that. And I'm going to pick a few bits out. Right, I think that's it. I'm calling that. So I'm really happy with the way that that's turned out, actually. Nice, quick, simple technique. 8 paints. So I started with the Hex Wraith Flame. Dry brush that with the Gauze Blaster. Then the leather work was Rhinox Hide with a dry brush of Rakath Flesh. Then the metal work was all Leadbelcher with a dry brush of Mournfang Brown. Then all of the non-green areas painted with Nuln Oil, and a little bit more over the areas I wanted to start getting some solidity to. And then a little bit of a dry brush and picking out colours with Canopec alloy. But there we have it, the Bladegheist. I will do another video on the base, but what are we looking at time wise? About 45 minutes, 50 minutes to get that painted. Well, I'm really happy with that. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you've got any suggestions for models you'd like to see me paint and conversations you'd like me to have while painting them, or things you want me to talk about, please drop a comment. But for now, my name's John, and you've been watching War Games, Models and Other Hobbies.